When we talk about sales, we generally believe all salespeople, they just love to talk. Communication is one of the most important skills that a salesperson must have. And usually we associate and align it with talking. But apart from talking, there has to be a listener. The critical skill is here about listening. Let me ask you a question. What is the difference between hearing and listening? Most of us hear, but seldom do people listen. Hearing is all about what is being said, and listening is all about what is being meant by the conversation. And most of us, we hear, we listen to respond, and we need to listen to understand. So that is where in fact, a good salesperson must be a better listener than a better speaker. Because most of the time, if you're talking about how we respond, then we may not have sufficient time to think about what is the purpose, what is the requirement of the customer. So when we are talking about listening, if you think about our nature's way, God has given us 2 ears and one set of eyes. What is the reason? One mouth, 2 ears. What is the reason? The reason is that He wants you to listen more than you talk. And when we are talking about listening, it's all about how do we not only just focus, because also our mental stress is that we spend a lot of time our span of time in any conversation is not more than about 7 seconds at a time, and therefore we tend to drift. So one is getting focused, but how do we get involved in the conversation? And that is where we are talking about, there's a process of listening. Apart from the skill sets, and if you really think about it, when we were small, all of us, the first thing that we did was we learned how to talk. If you remember, our parents would ask us, talk, speak, call their name, say mama, say papa. But along the way, we kept on repeating the same thing. We were encouraged to talk. But can you just think about, did anybody teach you how to listen? And that is why listening is something which is self-taught. It is a skill. So therefore, if it's a skill, it can be taught, it can be learnt. It is the only question, it's a skill, therefore it needs to be practiced. Practice makes a person perfect, but then you need to know how to make it perfect. So when you're talking about listening, primarily there's a process. An easy way of listening is, number one, be involved with the conversation. So when you're listening, always acknowledge what the person is saying. Maybe by saying, yes, I do, saying yes and nodding. That means that person is saying that your body language, it stipulates that you're listening. Apart from that, it's also in terms of how do I paraphrase. One of the beautiful elements of listening is paraphrasing. When we are talking about paraphrase, it is like when the person is speaking, how do I take what he has said and summarize it in my own words, that particular the particular element which you're talking about. Of course, at the end of the conversation, we are talking about somebody, but when we are summarizing the that is called a paraphrase. And of course, after paraphrasing, we ask him by asking clarifying questions. So when we ask questions, that person gets associated to us. So when we are listening is a lot of hard work. It not only builds a better conversation, because people love to listen to people who listen to them. Therefore, how do I connect with people? The best way is by listening. And listening is, apart from the process, it builds relationships. It also gets to understand the needs of the customer. It also makes you conscious and observant about the various body language and his frame of reference. So if we tend to bring all this together, we'll have a very powerful conversation, and that is what makes a good salesperson, an exceptional salesperson. Thank you.